Welcome to the Pencil Bob channel. I hope you enjoy my stories.
I can't believe what's happening to me right now. It's like I'm living in some kind of twisted nightmare and I can't seem to wake up. My home, my sanctuary, the place where I'm supposed to feel safe and secure has been violated. And the worst part, it's not some random burglar or criminal. It's the very people who are supposed to protect our community. Let me start from the beginning. I live in a nice condo complex, nothing too fancy, but it's always been a peaceful place. That is, until about a month ago when things started getting weird. I came home from work one day and noticed something off about my front door. The deadbolt looked different, scratched up in a way it hadn't been before. At first I brushed it off, thinking maybe I had just never noticed it before. But then I saw the muddy footprints in my foyer. My heart started racing. Someone had been in my home. I checked every room, every closet, looking for any sign of what they might have taken or what they were after, but nothing seemed out of place. It was just those footprints, silent witnesses to an uninvited guest. I called my neighbor Judy in a panic. "Judy, I think someone's been in my condo," I said, my voice shaking. "What? Are you sure?" she asked, concern evident in her voice. "There are footprints and my lock looks like it's been tampered with. I'm freaking out here." Judy came over right away and we went through the condo together. She agreed that something was definitely off. "Have you called the police?" she asked. I shook my head. "Not yet. I wanted to make sure I wasn't overreacting." "Call them," she insisted. "This is serious." So I did. I called the local police department, explained the situation and waited anxiously for them to arrive. When they finally did, I led them through my home showing them the evidence. But their response left me cold. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but this looks like a civil issue," the officer said, looking uncomfortable. "If you have concerns about unauthorized entry, you'll need to take it up with your HOA or property management." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "But someone broke into my home," I protested. The officer shrugged. "Without clear evidence of forced entry or theft, there's not much we can do. I suggest you install some cameras and document any future incidents." After they left, I felt even more vulnerable than before. Judy stayed with me that night, neither of us getting much sleep. The next day I went out and bought a new deadbolt, the most secure one I could find. I installed it myself, feeling a small sense of accomplishment. At least now I thought I could rest easy. But that peace of mind was short-lived. Just a week later I came home to find my brand new deadbolt drilled through. This time there was no doubt. Someone was deliberately breaking into my home. The violation I felt was indescribable. I felt sick to my stomach, angry and scared all at once. I decided to confront the property manager directly. I marched down to the office, my hands shaking with a mix of fear and rage. "Someone is breaking into my condo," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "And I have reason to believe it's someone associated with the HOA." The property manager, a middle-aged woman named Karen, looked at me with a mixture of surprise and defensiveness. "That's a very serious accusation," she said. "What makes you think it's anyone from the HOA?" I explained about the locks, the footprints, and the police's dismissal of my concerns. As I spoke, I could see Karen's expression changing from skepticism to something more guarded. "I see," she said finally. "Well, this is a complex issue. I think it's best if we involve our legal counsel." Before I knew it, I was sitting across from the HOA's lawyer, a slick-looking man in an expensive suit. He listened to my story with a practiced neutral expression, then cleared his throat. "Ms. Johnson, I understand your concerns, but I need to make something clear. The HOA has the right to inspect units for maintenance and safety reasons. This is clearly outlined in your contract." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "You're saying you've been entering my home without my permission?" The lawyer nodded. "We've been conducting routine inspections. We tried to contact you multiple times to schedule these inspections, but when we received no response, we were forced to enter the unit." My mind was reeling. But you drilled through my locks, you left muddy footprints. How is that a routine inspection?" The lawyer had the audacity to look annoyed. "If you had responded to our notices and allowed us entry, we wouldn't have had to take such measures. As for the footprints, I can't speak to that specifically, but I assure you our inspectors are professionals." I left the office feeling even worse than when I'd entered. I had no idea what to do next. I felt powerless, violated, and alone. That night I barely slept, jumping at every little sound, convinced that at any moment someone would come bursting through my door. The next few days were a blur of anxiety and paranoia. I installed cameras both inside and outside my condo. I put a chair under the doorknob at night, even though I knew it probably wouldn't stop them if they really wanted to get in. I researched my rights, looking for any loophole that might protect me from this invasion. But the more I dug, the more hopeless I felt. It seemed like the HOA held all the cards. They had the right to enter for inspections, and my contract gave them broad powers that I had never fully understood when I signed it. My neighbors were sympathetic but largely unhelpful. Many of them had no idea this was even happening. "I've never had anyone from the HOA enter my unit without permission," my neighbor Tom told me when I asked him about it. "Are you sure you're not misunderstanding something?" His doubt only made me feel more isolated. Was I going crazy? Was I blowing this out of proportion? But then I'd look at my scratched-up deadbolt, remember the muddy footprints, and know that this was real. I tried reaching out to a local tenants' rights organization, hoping they might have some advice. The woman I spoke to was kind but not very optimistic. "HOAs have a lot of power," she explained. "And if it's in your contract, there might not be much you can do except try to change the rules from within the HOA itself." The idea of trying to change the HOA from within seemed laughable. I was just one person, and clearly they already saw me as a troublemaker. How could I possibly hope to make any real change? As the days turned into weeks, my anxiety only grew. I found myself constantly checking the cameras, jumping at every noise in the hallway. I started working from home more often, afraid to leave my condo unattended for too long. My friends noticed the change in me, but I found it hard to explain what was happening without sounding paranoid. "Maybe you should think about moving," my friend Lisa suggested one day over coffee. "This doesn't sound healthy." I shook my head. "I can't let them win," I said, even though part of me was tempted by the idea. And besides, who would buy my condo if they knew about this? The worst part was the feeling of powerlessness. I had always thought of my home as my castle, a place where I was in control. But now I realized that control was an illusion. At any moment, someone could be in my space, touching my things, invading my privacy. I started having nightmares about coming home to find strangers in my living room, casually going through my belongings. In my dreams, I would scream at them to leave, but they would just look at me with blank expressions, as if I were the intruder. One particularly bad day, I came home to find my front door slightly ajar. My heart pounding, I pushed it open, half expecting to find a group of HOA officials standing in my living room. Instead, I found nothing out of place, except for a single piece of paper on my coffee table. With shaking hands, I picked it up. It was a notice from the HOA, informing me that they had conducted another inspection while I was out. The casual tone of the note, as if this was a completely normal occurrence, made me want to scream. I crumpled the paper in my fist, tears of frustration streaming down my face. How long could this go on? How long could I live like this, never knowing when my space might be invaded? As I stood there, surrounded by the remnants of what I had once thought was my safe haven, I realized that this fight was far from over. I didn't know how, but I knew I had to find a way to stop this. For my sanity, for my safety, and for the principle of the thing. Because if they could do this to me, they could do it to anyone. But for now, all I could do was sink onto my couch, bury my face in my hands, and try to figure out what to do next. The battle with the HOA was far from over, and I had a sinking feeling that things were going to get worse before they got better. But I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't going to give up without a fight. Install cameras, multiple in case one fails. It happens. Ensure the cameras write to local media. It'd be great if they had battery back upstairs in case of a power outage. Comb through your covenants looking for right to enter, notice required, when forcing entry is permitted. While you're at it, leave some expensive-looking jewelry or a couple $20 bills out in the open where your cameras can watch the folks entering. Getting into the middle of a did they have right to enter fight is not fun for cops. Hey, look at this guy pocketing $100 bucks off my counter, much less so. Simply breaking and entering is usually a misdemeanor, a jailable offense. Further activities inside can turn that into burglary. In many places, it's legal justification for the homeowner to use deadly force too. A friend of mine was charged with burglary for opening an unlocked door and letting a distressed dog and cat run to her apartment next door where she could care for them. She knew the pet owner and texted to let her know where the animals were, but the pet owner was a psycho and told the cops to go ahead and arrest her. The law is not friendly to unauthorized entry into a private home.
If you like our stories, then please like and subscribe and comment, and remember to hit that bell icon so you never miss out. We have new stories almost every day.
It all started with a simple birthday party. My wife and I had been renting the HOA clubhouse for our kids' birthdays for years. Every time we walked in, the place was a mess. Trash everywhere, crumbs on the floor, and that same stinky garbage can sitting in the corner reeking of old food and who knows what else. We'd always have to clean up before we could even start setting up for our own party. It was annoying, but we dealt with it because the space was convenient and affordable. This year, though, something was different. We walked into the clubhouse, ready to do our usual cleanup, and noticed something was missing. The garbage can, that old beat-up smelly garbage can that had been there for as long as we could remember, was gone. We figured maybe the HOA board had finally decided to throw it out. Good riddance, we thought. It was about time they replaced it with something that didn't make the whole room smell like a dumpster. The party went off without a hitch. The kids had a blast, the cake was a hit, and we even managed to keep the place cleaner than we found it. We packed up, locked the clubhouse, and went home, thinking nothing more of it. A few days later, my wife got an email from the HOA. The subject line was something like, "Clubhouse rental follow-up." She opened it, expecting maybe a thank you for leaving the place spotless. Instead, it was an accusation. The email claimed that we had stolen the clubhouse garbage can and that they were holding our $300 security deposit until we returned it. I couldn't believe it. "They think we stole their garbage can," I said, staring at the email. "Are they serious?" My wife was just as baffled. Why would we steal a garbage can, and not just any garbage can? The smelliest, most disgusting one I've ever seen. We both laughed at the absurdity of it. But the more we thought about it, the angrier we got. We'd been renting that clubhouse at least twice a year since 2019. If we wanted that garbage can, we would have taken it years ago. Besides, who in their right mind would want it? It was practically falling apart. I decided to call the HOA president to clear things up. When I got her on the phone, I tried to keep my tone calm and polite, but it wasn't easy. "Hi, it's Bob," I said. "I'm calling about the email we got regarding the clubhouse garbage can." "There must be some kind of misunderstanding." The president's voice was cold and clipped. "We inspected the clubhouse after your party, and the garbage can was missing. It was there before your rental, and now it's gone. We're holding your deposit until it's returned." I took a deep breath. "With all due respect, we didn't take the garbage can. We didn't even touch it. In fact, it wasn't even in the clubhouse when we got there. We thought maybe the board had decided to get rid of it." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "That's not possible. The garbage can was there before your rental. If you didn't take it, who did?" "I don't know," I said, trying to keep my frustration in check. "Maybe the people who rented it before us. Have you checked with them?" Another pause. "The previous renters were board members. They wouldn't have taken it." I couldn't help but laugh. "So because they're board members, they're automatically innocent? That doesn't seem fair." The president's tone turned icy. "We have no reason to believe they would take the garbage can. You were the last ones to rent the space, so the responsibility falls on you." I could feel my blood pressure rising. "This is ridiculous. We've been renting that clubhouse for years. We've always left it clean and in good condition. Why would we suddenly decide to steal a garbage can?" "I'm just following protocol," she said. "Until the garbage can is returned, your deposit will be held." I hung up the phone, fuming. My wife looked at me expectantly. "Well, what did she say?" "They're not budging," I said. "They're convinced we took it, and they're keeping our money until we return it." My wife shook her head. "This is insane. We need to do something about this." We decided to take the issue to the HOA's Facebook page. It was a private group for residents, and we figured if we brought it up publicly, maybe we could get some support from our neighbors. My wife wrote a post explaining the situation, making sure to emphasize how ridiculous it was that we were being accused of stealing a garbage can. The response was immediate. Dozens of comments poured in, most of them siding with us. "Who would steal a garbage can?" one neighbor wrote. "This is ridiculous. Sounds like the board is trying to cover for someone," another commented. "Maybe they should invest in a better garbage can if they're so worried about it," someone else joked. A few people even shared their own stories of dealing with the HOA board, complaining about how they always seemed to favor certain residents over others. It was clear we weren't the only ones who had issues with them. The board must have been monitoring the page, because within a few hours my wife got another email. This time it was from the entire board, not just the president. They said they had reviewed the situation and decided to return our deposit. No apology, no explanation. Just a brief message saying the check would be mailed to us. We were relieved, but also frustrated. It shouldn't have taken public shaming for them to do the right thing. And they still hadn't addressed the real issue. Why they were so quick to accuse us in the first place. A few days later, we got our check in the mail. We deposited it, but the whole experience left a bad taste in our mouths. We decided to bring it up at the next HOA meeting. The meeting was held in the same clubhouse where all this had started. The room was packed and the tension was thick. When it was our turn to speak, I stood up and addressed the board. "We're happy to have our deposit back," I said. "But we're not happy with how this situation was handled. We were accused of stealing a garbage can with no evidence, and it took public pressure for you to return our money. That's not right." The board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The president cleared her throat. "We apologize for any inconvenience this may have caused. We were just following protocol." "Protocol," my wife chimed in. "Protocol would have been investigating the situation before accusing us. Protocol would have been treating all renters equally, not giving special treatment to board members." There were murmurs of agreement from the crowd. The board president looked flustered. "We'll take your feedback into consideration and review our procedures moving forward." It wasn't the full accountability we were hoping for, but it was something. As we left the meeting, several neighbors stopped us to thank us for speaking up. It felt good to know we weren't alone in our frustration with the board. In the weeks that followed, we noticed some changes. The clubhouse was cleaner when we went to rent it again, and there was a brand new garbage can in the corner, one that didn't smell like it had been rotting for years. The board also sent out a notice reminding everyone to inspect the clubhouse before and after their rentals to avoid any misunderstandings. It wasn't a perfect resolution, but it was a step in the right direction. And while we were glad to have our deposit back, the whole experience made us realize how important it is to stand up for yourself, even when it feels like the odds are stacked against you. As for the missing garbage can, it never turned up. My theory is that someone finally got fed up with the smell and tossed it out for good. And honestly, I don't blame them. The fact it was found missing after you is circumstantial. Even if they could prove it was there before you got there and gone after you left, still doesn't mean you stole it. Demand proof that you or one of your guests physically removed the trash can with video evidence. In case OP actually doesn't know, where I live, copying a key costs less than $2, only takes about 5 minutes, and can be done at any Walmart or hardware store with no questions asked. Grocery stores even have automated key copying machines now, if you're worried that someone asks questions. As an aside, this is why I advocate for never allowing someone access to a key, unless you're fully prepared for them to copy it and let themselves in at any time. Electronic locks with reprogrammable codes have been a game changer for me. The dog sitter gets a unique temporary code that I disable when we get home. Same goes for any family friends who may need to get in.
I would like to thank you for watching the video to the end. To encourage us to make more videos, please like, subscribe, comment, as well as share. Check out this other video if you haven't already.